The CIA known dead ship, SS Ourang Medan. Hello everybody, and today we'll be talking about the ghost ship, SS Ourang Medan. A ship that had its entire crew die under suspicious circumstances, its crew not disappearing, but being instead found all dead on ship. The Ourang Medan was a ghost ship that's name roughly translates to Man of Medan, possibly named after the largest city on the Indonesian island of Sumatra, that's tale dates back to the olden days of 1940 to possibly even 1948. The tale of the ship goes as follows. Two American ships traveling the Straits of Malacca, the city of Baltimore, and the Silver Star begin to pick up strange distress messages from a nearby ship, claiming to be a Dutch merchant ship named Ourang Medan, with the distressed radio operator aboard sending out messages in Morse code that are as follows. SOS from Ourang Medan, followed by a later, "We float. All officers, including the captain, dead in the chart room and on the bridge. Presumably, whole crew dead," with more panicked and incomprehensible code following than one last message, "I die." With no more messages being heard from the ship, the crew of the Silver Star were determined to locate and rescue whatever survivors may be aboard. The crew of the Silver Star were curious about what was happening aboard the troubled ship, eventually succeeded in finding the Ourang Medan that was eerily undamaged, with no crew to be seen. So to figure out exactly what happened, the crew of the Silver Star moved into range for a boarding action. After a successful boarding of the ship, the crew were horrified because of what they found on deck. It was nothing but corpses. Even the ship's dog was found dead, with bodies being reportedly frozen and faces of great fear upturned to the sun, with eyes staring strangely straight ahead, mouths gaping open. With no survivors being located, and no inherent cause of death found for the corpses on deck, the boarding team decided the best course of action before going further would be to prepare the Ourang Medan to be towed to a nearby port for further investigation. However, soon into this process, a fire suddenly broke out, seemingly in the ship's number 4 cargo hold, forcing the boarding party to abandon towing operations and the ship. Soon, the Ourang Medan exploded before sinking completely, unfortunately putting a stop to any further investigation. Now I find this story particularly interesting, as it is far different than most of the odd ghost stories of the past. Involving known ships, that of course being the aforementioned Silver Star and City of Baltimore, and the ship's fate itself not being caused seemingly by some demonic specter of the sea, but instead some sort of accident. And from what is described, there are two main theories that have emerged about the fate of the vessel, that I shall explain. Theory 1 is that the Ourang Medan may have been involved in smuggling chemical substances such as potassium cyanide or nitroglycerin, potentially even some nerve agents of the First World War and beyond, and if seawater entered the ship's hold, they would cause the crew to quickly succumb to asphyxiation or poisoning. And in the case of nitroglycerin, being a well-known explosive gas, this would easily cause the crew to be killed and provide enough time to be boarded before the fires quickly erupting below deck would eventually cause it to explode. In addition, they might have even been smuggling nerve gas that Imperial Japan stored in China during World War II, developed maybe even potentially by the infamous Japanese Human Experimentation Unit, 731, that might have been on transfer to the United States military at the end of the war. Hence its secrecy, with no US ship being able to transport it. It might have been loaded onto this ship due to its lack of registry for transport, maybe even providing a reason why the cargo ship might have been selected to move such dangerous cargo in the first place. Theory 2 is that the ship may have simply succumbed to a non-properly detected fire, releasing large amounts of carbon monoxide that poisoned the crew before eventually reaching the ship's boiler system, causing the eventual explosion and both the deaths of the crew to line up. With the ships being non-registered, it could mean that the ship was under par for operational procedure, it being more important to move the illicit cargo for profit than keep the crew safe and prepared. However, some skepticism is warranted, As mentioned previously, it is quite odd that the ghost ship was not properly registered, at least under the name Ourang Medan, however. As mentioned, the identity of the Silver Star has been confirmed, but without record of the rescue attempt being found within the ship's logs. However, this is where the story of the Ourang Medan becomes even more interesting. Declassified in 2003, a paper by a Mark Jr. has been revealed. The paper is roughly 2 pages and discusses the fate and potential implications of the Ourang Medan. Due to its importance and its relative length, I will elect to read the paper out to you in full to see what you think. On May 29, 1958, I sent you a letter concerning crews disappearing from ships on the high seas, or ships which have disappeared without trace. Well, I just read a weird story concerning the fate of the Dutch vessel SS Ourang Medan. I'll be indeed grateful for your opinion of this story. Also, do you think something from the unknown may be involved? In early February 1948, an SOS came from the SS Ourang Medan. Dutch and British listening posts located the vessel, proceeding through the Malacca Strait. The sea was calm, the weather was clear. SOS, SOS. Again came the frenzied call. After a short silence, all officers, including the captain, dead, lying in the chart room and on bridge. Presumably, whole crew dead. There followed a series of incomprehensible dots and dashes. Then came the clearly, I die. Rescue ships from the Dutch Sumatra and British Malaya rushed to the indicated location of the vessel in distress. They found only 50 miles from the position given. Boats were put over the sides to investigate. When the boarding parties reached the Ourang Medan, they found an eerie sight. There was no living creature on the ship. The captain lay dead on the bridge. The bodies of the other officers sprawled in the wheelhouse, chart room, and wardroom. The faithful Sparks was slumped in a chair in the radio shack, his hand still on the sending key. The bodies of the other crew lay everywhere, in their rooms, in the passageways, on the deck, and on all the dead faces was a look of conclusive horror. As a report of the proceedings of the Merchant Marine Council put it, their frozen faces were upturned to the sun, their mouths were gaping open, and their eyes staring. Everyone was dead. Even the ship's dog, a small terrier, was lifeless, his teeth bared in anger and agony. But strangely, there was no sign of wounds or injuries on any of the bodies. After a quick conference, the boarding parties decided to put a tow line under the vessel and take her into port. But at that very moment, smoke and flames belched forth from number 4 hold. The fire was immediately so hot, so widespread, that it was impossible to subdue. The boarding parties hurriedly abandoned the vessel and returned to safety out of one of their own ships. Moments later, there was a terrific explosion on the Ourang Medan, and then the vessel sunk with all her dead crew. I feel sure that the SS Ourang Medan tragedy holds the answer to many of these airplane accidents and unsolved mysteries of the sea. Also, I have often thought about the many sightings of huge fiery spheres rising from the sea, or disappearing into the sea, by ships' captains and crews in the 18th and 19th centuries. There are alarming passages in Old English chronicles written in medieval Latin and in the Latin Inculapa, or books printed before the year 15,000 AD, which suggest that these fiery spheres cause destruction and that they come from within our planet. For instance, in 216 BC, things like ships were seen in the sky over Italy. In Sardinia, a knight was making his rounds, inspecting the posts guarding the rampart, when a stick in his hands burst into flames. The same thing happened to Roman soldiers in Sicily, who saw their javelins flame and burn in their hands. At Ypres, a round shield was seen in the sky. Also, in AD 1067, people saw a fire that flamed and burned fiercely in the sky. It came near the earth, and for a little time brilliantly lit it up. Afterwards, it resolved, ascended on high, then descended into the sea. In several places, It burned woods and plains. Yes, the enchanting sea, what terrifying secret does it hold? I feel sure that the SS Ourang Medan tragedy holds the answer to this secret. Sincerely yours, C.H. Mark Jr. So that is the story of the Ourang Medan, an odd ghost ship to be sure, but an interesting one, with far more believable stories than most others of its caliber. However, of course, the most interesting part that I believe lends credence to its myth is that of the CIA document discussing its existence. If the Ourang Medan is ever discovered in the future, presuming the ship's hull has not been eroded away by now and it has been taken by the sea, we are certain to find many more clues of what might have happened. As of now, I shall end this video to leave you to ponder about the mystery of the Ourang Medan.